Hey everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we'll be reviewing the S.H.Figuarts Trafalgar Law raid on Onigashima. Now this is the 6th anime One Piece S.H.Figuarts, 8th technically One Piece S.H.Figuarts in the new line if you're counting the live action figures, but I don't really count them that much and I don't really have any interest in picking those up. I haven't picked up the Kaido, I'm still undecided on if I want that figure, but I did want the Law, especially since as of recording I finished the Dressrosa arc in the manga and I do care for Law quite a bit as a character. He's interesting, his power's good, and I do have a bit of a feel about him as a whole, and I can enjoy this figure for the most part, even though I do know that this is him from Wano. Now this is a very standard One Piece S.H.Figuarts box. It's just a little bit bulkier than the standard. There's a clear window to the front, promo image on the front, sides and back, so you can sort of get a bit of an idea of what Law is capable of. He also comes with an alternate face for Luffy. But we'll jump right into things. So, taken out of the box, you can see Law comes with 5 faces, an alternate face for Luffy, technically 2 swords, he's got one sheathed and one scabbard, a bunch of different hands, as well as an alternate headpiece for him without his hat. So it's a pretty good loadout. I think the only other thing they could really do is put an effect part either on his sword or in his hands, but otherwise it's a pretty solid loadout. Now, taken out of the box and put on a display, here is Law, and he looks pretty good. I will admit the cape is a little bit distracting and overall does get in the way of the figure a little bit, but I do understand that this is his design during that arc of One Piece, and it is necessary to break up the design of the character itself, otherwise he's just wearing a standard collared shirt and jeans, which is also pretty standard for Law. Usually he's shirtless with jeans or something like that. But yeah, it is a decent enough look. Still haven't really warmed up to a lot of the characters with sort of coats or capes on them. And the One Piece line in general has a bit of trouble with capes or coats or long sort of dress-like leggings. Like the Yamato release was fine, but they had to segment it in such a way that it breaks the sculpt if you're not paying attention. I heard the Kaido's cape is pretty good, but it is removable, which is a saving grace in case you don't want things getting in the way. And the Zoro's bottom cloak was just an absolute nightmare to deal with. But general aesthetics of the figure are good. All of the paintwork that's on this figure is fantastic. All of the detail on the face, his pants, his hat, his tattoos, and the tattoos on all of his hands are all done impeccably. So it is generally one of the best looking One Piece Figuarts they've done so far. I just don't like the aesthetic that much of the Wano Law as opposed to other designs of Law. Before we go any further, here he is next to Luffy, so you can see how they scale together, and I think that is accurate, that Law is a little bit taller than Luffy. And here he is next to WCF figure, so you can see how he scales against a lot of the One Piece minifigs. Articulation wise on Law, it's not too bad. He's got a ball joint at the head and neck, so he can look down that far and up not too much. His coat on the shoulder pads can hinge out and you can pose it around. On the back it is adhered to his actual shirt back, so you can't really bend it that much. It is a soft plastic, so it doesn't hinder things too much, but you can't like flick out the cape fully. His arms can move out that far. They can rotate all the way around, a little bit blocked by the cape. There is a swivel at the upper arm as well as a bend at the elbow and hinge at the wrists. He can butterfly his arms forward that far, which is pretty good. His hands can cross over just fine, and the upper part of the shirt is a soft plastic as well, so it bends with his arms. There is a swivel at the waist. He can kick forward that far and the shirt bends to make way for it. He can't kick back at all because of the sculpted butt. There is a bend at the knee, a swivel at the thigh, as well as a hinge at the ankle and toe. And he also has the splits going out that far. So pretty okay generally. I'd say the major problem with Law is his stability, because the cape is very heavy and it's hard to work that with his skinny and tiny feet. But you can get him standing up with a little bit of effort. but I would recommend a stand, and it would have been nice if he did have a stand included, because they would have known this figure was incredibly heavy. I'm sure Kid will have a similar issue, but hopefully his bulkier frame will make it easier to pose him. But moving right along, Law comes with 5 faces, so he's got a neutral face out of the box. He's got a teeth-gritted angry face, he's got a shouting angry face, he's got a little smirk, as well as a goofy face, which I think is to reenact a very specific moment, because Luffy also has this exact face. Now, all of these faces can also be used with the alternate head sculpt, which is Law without his hat, so you can swap all of these faces, including the goofy one, with that head sculpt, and they all look good with either the hat or regular hair. I do prefer Law with the hat because otherwise he seems like a pretty generic-ish character, and I think the hat does a lot for him to make him look way more iconic, similar to how the straw hat makes Luffy, but Luffy does look iconic with or without the straw hat. And with those faces and his other accessories, you can get a decent amount out of this figure, and I do like he has quite a few options for his hands. It is intentionally designed that he can hold his scabbard and his sword separately, which I do like. Similar to the Zoro, you can remove the hilt from the scabbard to make it look like he's drawn his sword, and it's not actually one that you sheath or unsheath, so it keeps the blade intact just fine. And you can get Law into some decently actiony poses. It does break the sculpt a bit with the limitations of the cape, so just sort of be wary of it as you pose it around. Some of his poses, especially the promo images that they have on the box, don't really work too well, like upside down poses, because it's hard to put him on a stand and keep him on a stand because of the weight distribution of the cape, or where you're even going to put the stand arms holding him. But generally, you can get a good amount out of this figure. The expressiveness of the faces helps quite a bit, and I think it helps having him with other figures to play around with sort of room or shambles type effects. It would be nice if he did have an actual effect part to recreate things like that, but all of the hand parts you get do work quite well. He does have a few unique hands for specific sides. Not everything is left and right identical. But again, all of those hands are beautifully detailed with all the tattoos, and you can get a lot out of this figure if you really work it. I even saw another YouTuber make him fold his arms, and it looked very, very natural, and I think that that's cool, and I do like that the figure is free enough to allow for something like that. But generally, he's a pretty good release. I think I got a lot out of this figure because I have some goofy figures to pose him with to play around and imitate shambles or other effects that Law has. But generally, as a standalone figure, he's pretty good, but I don't think he's the best that the One Piece line has had so far. I still think that that's between Sanji and Yamato, but it is a clear sign of improvement because the arms are solid, feel good, the legs are solid, feel good, but the cape is still a bit of a concern. If you took out the cape, you would have a pretty standard S.H.Figuarts figure, but it would be one that is not compromised or feels awkward in any real way. Whereas like the Sanji figure feels good, but his arms are somewhat compromised due to some weird engineering. Similar to the Luffy, they designed his arms in a very specific way for how his arms hinge out, and it's a bit awkward, but it gets the job done. Law feels like another figure that gets the job done, nothing too crazy. Hopefully with future releases, in particular the pre-time skip Luffy and Nami, we'll see a huge improvement in terms of quality and mobility of the figures, but only time will tell. But that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I will see you all next time.